What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be looking at Fresno State edge rusher David Perales, who signed as an undrafted free agent with the Pittsburgh Steelers following the 2023 NFL Draft. Going to look at this USC game from this past season where Perales ended up with a couple sacks, I think 5 or 6 pressures as well. Impressive performance from him against a really good top competition USC offense. So want to break this one down just before we get started. Please make sure y'all like the video. Make sure you consider subscribing to the channel for more content just like this. We're going to go over, strengths, weaknesses, and, just if I think that he's got enough juice to potentially crack the 53-man roster. Let's get into this one. So Perales, just from a build standpoint, 6'2", 250 pounds, a little over 32-inch arms. He was hampered by an ankle injury, I think, later in the season. And that affected his pro day numbers. Didn't test particularly well, probably what led to him going undrafted. But you see, the same traits kind of pop up all over his film, just in watching some broadcast view and then some all 22. What I like about Perales is, his ability to play with good leverage when he does want to go speed to power. He's more of a speed rusher in general, but he will deploy this speed to power move. You see good leverage right here. Creates a little bit of initial knockback. And then I like how he sequences moves together here, starting with a rip, and then you see a little bend around the corner. The main thing with Perales, man, is just this dude plays incredibly hard all the time. Like, he has a motor that just does not stop. And that's something that I really appreciate with him. It's something that the Steelers in particular really look for in guys playing near the line of scrimmage. Having this high motor, man, it gives you a high floor as a player, just because you're going to consistently be around the ball. And as a speed rusher, I like how he does a good job playing with good leverage in these first couple clips. Attacking this elbow right here to get underneath and inside the pass rusher. A little swim move, almost gets to the quarterback, but we end up with 3 guys just focusing on that one player. So really good rep from him. Like I said, he was disruptive throughout this one. Even in the first part of the game where he wasn't necessarily getting the sacks, he was getting a bunch of pressures. And then he had a couple sacks later that I thought were particularly impressive, kind of showing off some of the things that I've already talked about. But with Perales, he does have a couple different moves. He loves the 2-hand swipe. I've seen him use this cross chop. I like this move in particular because he's trying to set this offensive tackle out to the outside shoulder, puts that right foot in the ground, gets him off balance a little bit, and then he's going to try to go with this kind of Superman cross chop is what I would kind of call this. And basically, he's trying to take this right arm and pin it to that left elbow and then rip himself through. Unfortunately, just with this kind of exotic blitz that they got going on right here, he gets his foot kind of stepped on and he falls down. But another thing that I really like about him, he didn't have it in this game, but in just the YouTube clips I was watching of him, he does a good job getting his hands up in passing lanes. Almost gets the deflection right there. If you're not going to get to the quarterback, might as well get your hands up. At least make the quarterback feel you a little bit to potentially get your hand on the ball. I mentioned that 2-hand swipe. This is kind of his go-to move as a pass rusher. I also want to point something out too. He has a little bit of a false step sometimes, and I'll kind of show you guys some better examples, but which kind of decreases the amount of explosiveness off the line of scrimmage. But he does a good job, kind of rolling off of that front foot here. And then he's going to just take that 2-hand swipe, get those hands off of him, and then flatten and quarter to the quarterback. Unfortunately, just the ball gets out right before he gets there. Another 2-hand swipe move. This one was really unfortunate, man, because he's killing himself. You see, he's got the hands on the helmet. He's so close to getting a strip sack here. But if you watch it, this is what I'm talking about with the false step. So what you really want to do is make sure that you're rolling off of this front foot and putting the majority of your weight off that front foot so you can explode out of your stance. Think of like, if you're like a track star, you want to explode out the gate, right? Especially if you're a speed rusher like Perales. You see him pick that front foot up and then put it back down. That's a false step. So when you look at this rep, man, like, he's ends up, threatening the corner, gets his tackle kind of turned a little bit. You get the 2-hand swipe to keep himself clean and then bend, flatten quickly to the quarterback. I mean, that one little false step, man, is the difference in this being, a pressure on third down, which goes down as an incompletion and a punt, to him getting a strip sack. I mean, those little details like really matter, and he's killing himself right there. But I'm sure he went back to the film and was like, man, if I could just keep my foot down and roll off, like I'm right there. So USC tried to do some interesting things with their protection. They asked some tight ends to come across the formation and block him. As an edge rusher, you got to take those type of matchups in a disrespectful manner. And I like this. He does play with a little bit of violence to his game, despite being more of a speed guy. Again, just playing with good leverage, kind of torquing those hips and creating a good lift on that tight end, trying to block and pass protection. You know, anytime a team's trying to block you with a tight end, man, you gotta make them pay. You gotta make them feel you. There are some inside counters that I really appreciated from Perales. You know, whenever you're a speed rusher, you really, really have to make sure that you have like some type of go-to move as far as an inside counter. Um, would have liked to see him stay a little bit more square here, just to sell this a little bit better. But again, you see him kind of go with that cross chop and leaves this, tackle literally leaning. So what he's doing is just taking that right arm and basically trapping, the blocker's, right arm leaning. And then again, you just see this all over his tape, man. He plays with a really hot motor. Like he'll move quarterbacks off the spot. He will chase guys down. I wouldn't say that he's probably more of like an average athlete. He did test extremely well on the agilities, which shows up in his bend. But something about him, man, like I said, he just plays so freaking hard, and it gives him opportunities to consistently be around the quarterback. You think if you've watched Caleb Williams, I'm sure that most of you guys really have. Um, but here he's trying to set this offensive lineman up with an inside move as well. You see this is a backup that was kind of in and out of the game a little bit, but kind of leaning towards the inside. And then Perales does a good job working that Euro step to a two-hand swipe and then rip, bend in the corner. I like the angle that he's taking here, making sure he's taking an efficient angle to the quarterback. He does get pushed in the back here. I'm not really sure if that's what the flag is potentially, but does a good job, just staying committed, relocating again, just keeping himself clean, another two-hand swipe, and then, chasing down Williams at the end of the play. And Williams is a guy who loves to extend the play. He's a scrambler. He's a gunslinger. So you have to play, to the whistle with him because he's not just going to give up on plays. So um, I just really appreciate the effort, with him in general. Another effort sack here. Again, kind of working speed to power. He doesn't do this a ton just because while he does he has enough burst off the line of scrimmage, especially when he gets himself into like third down situations or obvious passing situations, to where if he gets the offensive tackle guessing a little bit, he can generate some initial pushback, some explosiveness through that speed to power move. You see him kind of get this guy off balance a little bit and just driving backwards. But he's not a big guy. Like he's sub 250, I believe. So his power moves do kind of fizzle out on him a little bit. But one thing I like is, just trying to keep himself free, trying to play to the whistle, falls down, gets back up. Those things are going to endear you to coaches just when you're consistently, giving all your effort as a pass rusher. As a run defender, I thought this game was a little bit uneven in my opinion. But just as an edge defender, I do like when they did try to block him with tight ends or guys coming across the formation. I do think that he set the edge relatively well. I like how he gets, in a power position here. He's going to create some extension, locking out his arms, really controlling this blocker with his helmet, kind of looking back towards the running back. They got a puller coming across, but does a good job, coming back over, grabbing the running back for a run stop. Now, just to kind of look at some of the, I guess, more negative plays in the games, highlighting some stuff that really I think that he has to work on just in the limited tape viewings that I've seen so far of him. Like I said, I don't think he's a incredible athlete, which is kind of tough because, when you're an edge rusher, especially a speed rusher, and that really needs to be your calling card if you're going to make a big impact at the next level. One thing that I noticed, though, he does play hard, but man, he has a hard time just getting free from blockers. Like he doesn't have long arms. His hands are active as a pass rusher, but like once guys get engaged with him, he just really struggles to break free. Those block deconstruction skills just aren't really quite there. You see this left tackle here kind of get his hands on him. and just watch how long he's able to sustain this block. Just mirroring over him. He eventually does come free, using a little bit of bend with that rip move. But that's really just a theme all over his tape, man. Like once guys can kind of get their hands on him, he really struggles to get off blocks. And that's, obviously not great. Something he can definitely work on. Um, in the times that I felt like he was being asked to kind of come down and play the run, instead of just set the edge, more like maintain like an inside gap, like he is right here. USC's running GT counter. They got two pullers. He's asked to kind of come down the line of scrimmage and kind of hold this line right here. 57 is able to, wall him off rather easily. But what I see from him a lot is like he is a little bit high in his pad level, and he doesn't have the sand in his pants of the lower body strength in particular to kind of get away with this type of stuff. So he kind of just gets blown off the ball, blown off the gap, and here we're 7-8 yards back from the line of scrimmage, and, he's still in contact with that blocker. So just needs to play a little bit lower. He plays primarily out of a 2-point stance, on the edge, which is not, anything out of the ordinary for 3 or 4 outside linebackers. But anytime he was asked to play like defensive end, or, play from a 3-point stance, his get off was extremely slow. I thought from a 2-point stance, his get off was a little bit inconsistent, some false steps, some issues just, reading the snap timing, but he was really slow off the ball. From a 3-point stance, a couple of times that I saw him there. And then again, I think just playing a little bit high here. But, you would just like to see him kind of hone in on some of those finer details, get off the ball quicker. This is another example, just kind of his false step again. Not that he's rushing the passer or anything on this particular play, but watch him pick that left foot up and then put his right foot down. Again, just needs to be more consistent with his footwork coming off the edge. Again, 70 is just kind of able to easily stay sustained on him, even though right there he's really just playing kind of edge setting role. And just as a pass rusher, man, like I do think that the two-hand swipe is a good go-to move for him. I've seen him do some dip rip. He has some inside counters. He's a little bit slow to transition to his second move. So like on this particular play, how he's trying to go speed to power, you can kind of see that lack of like play strength, in my opinion, like because he's not able to consistently take advantage of tackles that, have their shoulders turned. He does a good job, getting his hips rotated towards the quarterback, but, not able to consistently generate that power through his power rushes. And then once he gets himself in these situations where, his moves aren't working, there's not a quick transition to that second pass rush move in succession. So just continuing to work on some of those things. Just as far as Perales, man, like he's stepping into a pretty good situation. I mean, for an undrafted free agent, it's all about, the guys ahead of you. And if you're going to be able to crack the bottom of the roster, I think Perales has the motor and, some bend to him, as well as, some flashes of nice hand usage or technical savvy with his pass rushing skills to potentially crack the 53-man roster. I think it's going to really come down to what he can do on special teams. I mean, I don't think that he played a ton of special teams. Looked like he covered punts in 2021, but he's never covered kicks on either way. If you're going to be an edge of the roster guy, you're going to have to cover, special teams duty. So he needs to be, Danny Smith's best friend in training camp. But when you look at the guys ahead of him, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, obviously the established starters. The Steelers drafted Nick Herbig. I think he's a good bet to potentially make the roster. But after that, man, it's a lot of guys kind of in the same mode as Perales who don't really have, a locked roster spot by any stretch of the imagination. We'll have to see if the Steelers, add a veteran to the mix here. But I definitely think, he's an intriguing player. Of all the undrafted guys so far that I've watched, he's probably the most or one of the most intriguing guys that they brought in. So let me know what you guys thought of the video. Please consider dropping a like, consider subscribing to the channel. All that stuff helps the channel grow, and I would greatly appreciate all that stuff. Drop me a comment on what you guys thought of Perales and what your all's thoughts are on the Steelers' edge position at the moment. Anyway, I will see you guys next time. Peace.